What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you're not missing any of the awesome content that we have coming out. And with this video, we're jumping into Icon and Rocket issue number 3. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this relaunch, go ahead, check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything going on with the Milestone universe. And I have to say that this line has been a lot of fun. It's great if you're already familiar with Icon and Rocket, but it's also great if you are just getting into them, you're not really knowing who these characters are. So this is a great little introduction and origin stories, really finding out who these characters are, what they're made of, while having some small adjustments from the original comics that we all know and love. But with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 3, we are picking up in the poppy fields of Afghanistan, because it has been Icon and Rocket's goal to end drug dealing. To end drug dealing in their neighborhood, the United States, how it's affecting the black community in such major ways. Now, of course, this was all Rocket's idea. Icon not even wanting to do the superhero thing, to not draw attention to himself, because he's been hiding out. He's been laying low while he occasionally does some freelance work for the United States government, for the CIA. For the majority of his existence on Earth, he has stayed relatively neutral, but that has all changed with Rocket. And so wanting to take out heroin at its source, what better than to take out the poppy fields, the people that are growing this stuff? And as we see all of the poppy farmers, they go to unload on Rocket, her absorbing all of this kinetic energy, taking that energy in and redirecting it. With a giant blast coming out of Rocket, everyone flies in the opposite direction. And that's when Icon makes his entrance and he comes to clean up the mess, to clean up whatever is left over, to take out these poppy fields. And how he does that is by creating a tornado and setting it on fire. And just like that, those poppy fields are done with. Now, while this is a great and noble goal, to take out heroin, to end drug abuse, or at least end the access to these drugs, there is also consequences to these actions. From these very poor farmers no longer able to grow poppy and make money for their family, all the way to Colombia, New York City, Tokyo, businesses, economies around the world are feeling this heavy hit. And right now, the US government, they are having a meeting. The president is sitting down trying to figure out what is going on. What happened to the world economy over freaking night? Because all of the economies, they are tanking due to the lack of drugs. Now, of course, this is confusing because we have a war on drugs. They're supposed to be doing this war on drugs specifically to do this very thing right here. But what they did not anticipate was the economic fallout due to no longer having those drugs. People are no longer getting rich off it, no longer buying mansions, no longer using all of their money on it. It's not being pushed through the system. We are not seeing the money continue to flow. And the idea is that the US government, they were more managing the war on drugs issue than actually trying to beat it. Because the idea is something that can never be destroyed. You can never win the war on drugs. And so it's nothing that they have ever anticipated to encounter. And so if the US government, if they don't act quickly, what we are going to see is states like Florida that are just having drugs run through them consistently. They could very well go bankrupt within inside 1 month. But that's when our good friend Bob walks into the room. Bob letting them know about Icon, letting the president know about Icon, being the individual that handles all of their extraterrestrial objects, all their extraterrestrial people, so on and so forth. And they know that it is Icon doing that, doing all of this, but they don't know his motives just yet. Now, this is when we're taken to a sit down with Icon and Rocket, with them sitting down enjoying the victories that they've had today, with everything that they have done. They took heroin essentially off the market, almost completely, but neither of them are so naive to believe that this is the end of the road. to believe that this is the end of war on drugs, that this is going to stop drugs altogether. Because when heroin is not available, you're going to have other things make their arrival. You're going to have meth really taking its place at the head of the mantle. And while Rocket, she wants to continue just hitting drug dealers as much as they can, as often as they can, and stopping them every single day, Icon also understands that this needs to be handled on a bigger scale. Because the next step is trying to fix all of the societal illnesses, the ones that drive people to do drugs in the first place, and providing some kind of good rehabilitation for the people so that they can get away from these things and stay away from them. But these aren't problems that you can simply punch your way through. And this is why he encourages her to continue her schooling, to continue learning about politics and economics and history. Because while they are doing great things to fix and make everything better, it doesn't necessarily mean that they cannot profit off of these things, to make investments into the future. Because he gives her a scenario. What they are doing right now, cleaning up all of these drugs off of the streets, that's going to do at least one thing. That's going to raise the property value of entire neighborhoods. With no longer having drug peddling, the values of these neighborhoods could see a significant rise. And so hypothetically, if they were to own property, if they were to own houses inside this neighborhood, they just saw a huge investment on a neighborhood that is going to be flourishing. And so while Rocket, Icon, they may not necessarily be huge fans of capitalism, they are definitely using it to their advantage. Now, picking back up with Bob and the president. Right now, they're going over what their best course of action is to do, because they feel like they have to do something, and they need to ensure that the rest of the nations don't hold the United States responsible for all of this, because they could just ask him to stop. But the issue is, if he does not do that, they need to have a backup plan. And that backup plan is Benedict Lord, reassuring the president that Mr. Lord, he's been used as far back as 1939 in Kansas. With Lord being a shapeshifter, he's able to go full invisible. And what they are saying is that they used Lord to kill this kid, to kill this baby alien that landed in Kansas in 1939. Now, we gotta assume that this is Superman. While they don't necessarily say that, they definitely say that they saved the world from an alien invasion. And they did so by sending in Mr. Lord to annihilate all of them. And after the president hears all of this information, he tells them to call in Mr. Lord. And this is when we're taken to West Virginia. Picking up in the backwoods, we got a couple of individuals inside of an RV, and right now they are cooking up some meth. They're doing that Breaking Bad. But this is going to go vastly different than it did for them, because they get their camper ripped open by Icon. And while they try to defend themselves, while they try to shoot him, they try to do something, he takes both of these guys and he throws them across the field. And we see this RV turn into flames. And from that giant explosion, both Icon and Rocket come walking out. And they tell these two guys, they tell them, you need to stop making meth. This is the last time you will ever do it, and if I catch you again, the RV won't be the only thing on fire. And as they go to leave, Rocket calls them rednecks. And while she may be okay with this, this is something that Icon is just not. Because at the end of the day, that is a racial slur, at least in his opinion. And the issue with this is they are supposed to be bringing justice, peace, and fairness to everybody alike. Not just black people, not just white people, everybody. And so you need to represent yourself as such. If you are going to be a beacon of light, you can't just do it for one race, for one people. You have to be equal to everybody, no matter how you feel about certain situations. No matter how you feel, even if they are racist themselves, even if they sit there and they call you the N-word or anything else, if they are sitting there calling you slurs, you need to smile at them and do the right thing. Because Icon, he knows more than anybody what it was like. Being alive in that time era, literally living through slavery. He doesn't use it as a metaphor, it is something that he lived through, a real life experience. And though he should be mad, he's not. Because the more time he spends with humanity, the more he realizes that there's two species, they're really alike. And though his people, they move past money and a lot of these trivial things, they still have their own issues that they need to work through, that they still need to grow out of. And he feels the same way about humanity. But Icon also lets her know that the individual that took his ship down, the terrorist that wrecked him on this planet, that individual is still walking around. And Icon believes him to be the most fearsome, the most dangerous individual that is left on this planet. And he is sure by now that that individual is out there hunting for them. Because Mr. Lord, the man hunting them, is the one that put him in a coma. He was put into a coma for decades. Because Mr. Lord's body is one of the only things that can truly harm Icon. And so when he was impaled, everyone thought he was dead, including him, which is exactly what he wanted for everyone to believe. But with Rocket coming into his life, she convinced him to show his face before he was ready to expose it to the world. And so instead of him having the upper hand, without him having the element of surprise, Mr. Lord now knows that Icon is alive, that Icon is out there, and now he has a target on his back. And this is a great lesson that Icon teaches her, because while they stopped drug sales on the street corner, they've disrupted drug sales globally. This is definitely something that you should be proud of. But you also need to understand that with your actions, there become consequences, even good actions. Because right now, they slowed the global economy. Bankers that launder that money hate them. The people who sell mansions and expensive cars and yachts hate them. Governments who secretly supported all of this legal activity, they hate them as well. They have made themselves public enemy number one. And so while we did great things, these are what we call unintended consequences. And it is going to affect everybody, to include the ones they love. And right now, Rocket's mother is under attack from Benedict Lord, with him breaking down the door and trying to make his way in, with her mother holding a pistol ready to unload everything she has on him. We see Miss Collins, the attorney, this magnificent woman. She jumped herself 3 or 4 stories high. Somehow, knowing that her mother is in danger, she rushed over here to try to help her. And with Mr. Lord shape-shifting into this hideous monster, Rocket's mother, she unloads that gun into him, but it has no effect. It does not even penetrate his skin. But lucky for her, Miss Collins comes in wielding a beautiful sword, saying that he may not be from this world, but neither is she. And with her going in, swinging this sword away, almost hitting this beast, but getting punched to the side. And with her now out of the way, this is when Lord goes in for the mother. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Definitely leaving us on a cliffhanger with Mr. Lord going after the mother. We can only assume that Icon and Rocket are going to be here lickety split. But I really have been enjoying this because it's tackling a lot of social issues. And while you can disagree with them all day long, while you may not find yourself agreeing with everything stated here, a lot of these really are on point. From the war on drugs to how heroin has hampered an entire generation of people. Not only that though, you can't just end things like heroin instantly. That there are consequences. People outside of yourself are going to be paying that. Like we had mentioned in the beginning, from the lonely Afghan farmer who needs that to be able to give his kids food and clean water, to almost crashing economies all over the world. These are consequences that you have to think of, that you have to use the bigger picture. While these are great feats and these are great deeds to get done, at the end of the day, you really have to contemplate and find different ways of handling this situation that's not going to leave possibly millions in starvation. And so this issue it was really a great lesson for Rocket to learn that punching just isn't always the answer. It doesn't always get the point across. It doesn't always solve your solutions, and you have to find better ways to be able to take down your enemies, to ensure that there is not this power vacuum. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, do me a favor, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you're not missing any of the awesome content we have coming out. And until the next breakdown.